I must say that for a very long time, the Dark Fae was probably my most hated Doom Tower boss that I had to fight, and the reason for that is, if you're not familiar, she drops you some of the best crafting materials in the entire game for essentially what is a upgraded Savage set. And if you don't have access consistently to good Merciless pieces, or some of the more pay-to-win sets that we have these days, Lethal set is going to be a very strong start for your account. So it's very important that you farm her as much as possible. Even consistently still myself, I am farming her as much as I possibly can and getting those gear pieces. Today, I am happy to be bringing you essentially what I think is the best team that you can possibly make for this, that is 100% free-to-play friendly, and if you don't have some of these champions, we'll still go over potential substitutions, though keep in mind that your win percentage may go down a little bit. So I made a video a few months ago talking about the team I was using at that time, and my win rate was around 85%. That team, though, you could use it on every single stage of Dark Fae, and you'd be able to beat it both inside the normal Doom Tower and the hard Doom Tower, so you didn't have to move gear or speed tunes or anything like that, and that is still the case with this particular team. So we're going to go ahead and just hop into it, and you can see essentially how it works. While it's running, I'm going to talk about some potential substitutions, and then afterwards we'll go over the AI presets, champions, gear, excuse me, masteries, all that sort of good stuff. So, working from left to right, you can see that we have Allure, we have a champion I did a highlight on recently, Skimfos, the Consumed, we have Newt, we have Yakarl the Scourge, and we have Eostrid Dream Song. Now, what's so nice about this team is there's 2 epics, one of which is a Void epic, but then 3 free champions that we would have got, right? So Newt was a fusion at one point. If you missed the fusion like I did, there's still a very solid chance that you'll end up pulling him, especially on some of the rate up events that we have. Eostrid, of course, was a fusion, and then Yakarl was available in the clan shop, I believe, is where he's at. He is a free champion, though. So essentially substitutions for these two over here. So Allure as well as Skimfos, you're essentially just bringing any sort of hardcore turn meter control champion. Sorry about that. Excuse me. So any sort of hardcore turn meter control champion. So for example, a Cold Heart is going to work perfectly fine in these situations as well. So you don't necessarily need to worry about what to do if you're missing these champions. What's very nice about this as well is, so Newt, Eostrid, and Yakarl are all bringing turn meter control, so very technically you could probably just 3-man this and get through it perfectly successfully as well. The other champions are essentially just here for extra insurance, so if you want, you could just run, some extra damage dealers in their slot. You could run your Kale or something like that, right? If you're freaky and still running him at stage 120 on Doom Tower Hard, which most people probably aren't going to be, but, you do you, I suppose. And you can see Newt makes very quick work of the boss, and then Eostrid is essentially just going to help us to cycle our turns so much quicker. She also brings the increased attack, and she brings increased crit damage, I believe, or increased speed rather, sorry. All these fantastic things that just help to make the run a little bit quicker. You can see Yakarl brings the decreased speed as well, so in case she gets resisted, he is Void Affinity, he can land it consistently, all those sorts of good things, though the boss is also Void, so we're not really worried about our own affinity matchups, especially when the boss never gets to take a turn like this. And again, this is Doom Tower 120 hard, and this team is just absolutely controlling her. You can, of course, make this a little bit quicker if you brought in, say, for like example, a Renegade or a Crixia or a Yumiko, some sort of a champion like that that can do resets as well. That would definitely help out so that Newt can essentially get around to his A3 a little bit quicker. Let's go ahead and let's go over those AI presets, which are very important, first of all, before I forget. So this is essentially how it's going to look for Newt. We have his Blessed Bash turned off for all rounds except the final round where he opens with it and prioritizes it. But then we also have his Fury of the King turned off because we don't want the counterattack going on him. And the reason for that is if he has the counterattack on him, it's essentially just going to slow down the run. We just want him cycling through his turns as normal and not doing those extra animations. Eostrid, we have our A3 and A2 turned off until we get to the final wave, in which case the A3 is priority, A2 is second priority. Allure does whatever she wants, and then everything gets turned off except the A1 on the third wave. Skimfos is free to do essentially whatever he wants until we get to the final wave, where we open with his AoE decrease attack, and then we essentially prioritize after that the stealing turn meter. And the reason for this is so that if Yakarl is not able to nuke down the enemy team, then we are going to have Skimfos essentially go in and finish the deal. The team is very, not tanky whatsoever, so he is going to be enough damage essentially to seal it off there as well. Every so often, there will be an instance where, for example, Eostrid might get a reaction proc or something like that, right? Because she is an arena build, so having Skimfos do this is a little bit better. And then, of course, he can just cycle around his turn meter steal afterwards anyways. Yakarl does whatever he wants. We turn off the A3 on the second wave to make sure he has it available. And then third wave, we open with Glaciate, so his A3, and then we don't use it again. This is his AoE freeze. So he is going to do an AoE nuke. He also freezes them for some extra, CC there. But we don't want this used again, because we'd rather be using the A1, which has a chance of placing a freeze, which isn't really much against the boss, but more importantly, we want to use his A2, which essentially just steals turn meter, places decreased speed, all those sorts of good things. So that's the way I have my presets set up. You can kind of mess around with those and find something that works for your particular team. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the builds as well in case you're curious. So Eostrid's built 339 speed, she's got 405 resistance, 447 accuracy, 52k HP, 3600 defense. You don't necessarily need her tanky or anything like that. You essentially just need her to go first, and you need her to survive. And the reason she's going first is so that she can increase your attack, your turn meter, and your speed, and then also kind of go and do the reverse against them, right? So she's essentially bringing in the weaken as well, which helps to set up Yakarl for a stronger nuke. Yakarl is just built out as much damage as I can potentially pump, while also not having any sort of a damage dealing set on him. So the damage you've seen there, you can certainly get additional damage out of him, right? If you had lethal or cruel or, savage or those sorts of things on him. 4700 attack, 108 and 176 on the crit rate and crit damage respectively, and then 308 accuracy. You essentially want to be hovering around or above the 300 accuracy, and that should get you through all stages of this content. Now, Newt, once again, does not have a damage dealing set on him, so if you had him in Savage or something like that, his damage is going to go up. He has one piece Slayer and then 2 sets of Perception, and this is how he's looking: 4700 on the defense, 244 speed, 100, and then 255 on the crit rate and crit damage respectively, and again, hovering at around that 300 accuracy. Skimfos, he has a little bit more accuracy, way more crit rate than he needs. He's got 4100 attack, 245 on the speed, so he is a little bit slower than Yakarl, which is intentional. We want him to be going afterwards. Essentially, we want Yakarl to go kind of right after Eostrid is the best way I've figured out to do it. And then finally, we have Allure, whose build I have not touched in forever. 97% on the crit rate. She doesn't necessarily need to be 100% crit. However, I would recommend it just since her turn meter depletion is predicated on it. So that is essentially the team. You want her at around the 300 accuracy there as well. As you can see, I have not touched her build, like I say, in really forever. So she still has just a flat 100% crit damage, right? She's not really doing too much damage to anyone. In terms of masteries, this is how we're looking if you're curious. So she's not even fully mastered out. We have Skimfos, who does have full masteries. We have Giant Slayer, of course, on Newt. It just makes sense. And then we have the Helm Smasher on Yakarl. And then finally, we have Eagle Eye on Eostrid. Excuse me. The Eagle Eye on Eostrid just ensures that we can help to meet those accuracy thresholds that we need in a lot of areas. And then I also recommend always running Evil Eye on your champions as well, especially for content like this where the boss is susceptible to turn meter depletion. It's essentially just going to help your team to push through this content so much more consistently that its impact really cannot be overstated. So fantastic mastery there. That being said, I hope this video was helpful and you guys are now able to consistently farm the Dark Fae and get yourself some better gear on your account. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time.